Uganda, I'm told I'm Kenyan. In Kenya, I'm being called a refugee. Go back to your country, stable. I mean, but I've lived my entire life in Kenya. I came here when I was a 3-year-old. I'm 37. That means I've been here for 34 good years. How do I go back? And start from where? My cousins, my friends in Uganda are asking me for connections to come and work in Kenya because they think there are no jobs. And I started talking to him and I'm telling him, just listen to me, please listen to me, I'm begging him. And the rudeness is throwing away my passport on the other side. Not towards me, of course, because I might take it. The other side, and he's saying, why do you want to talk to me? You've been living here, eating our money, working in our NGOs, and that's how he's talking to me. I love this country. In fact, if I'm asked to go back to Uganda, stay in Kenya, I'll stay in Kenya. Why can't this government cut me some slack? I mean, give me a chance. My name is Daisy. I'm living here in Kenya as a refugee with no status. We came here when I was a 3-year-old in this country, Kenya. And I've been here for 34 years. Right now, I am unemployed. I'm unemployed because I don't have the legal working documents in this country. My status changed from an alien to a refugee, and now I can't renew my refugee card. I've been asked to go back home, home being Uganda. But it's not my home. This is my home. I have been here. I have served this country. So my story begins when I was a 3-year-old. We moved to Kenya. I think that must have been 1987. I was a 3-year-old then. And I found myself in a refugee camp. I didn't know myself, nothing, none of that. In fact, all the stories of being in a refugee camp I've been told as a teenager. So the story is that there was war in Uganda and my dad was in the army and he got arrested. He was jogging at Nambole Stadium. That's army things. And some men followed him. They arrested him. They took him to, I think, Luzira prison. And from there, according to the stories that he's told me himself, is that they used to be given crude weapons to fight. So he says he was given a machete, and the other guy was given a mallet. And he tells me that he could not hit this person because it was a way of survival. So this person hit him first, so he passed out. And he remembers he was at Lake Victoria where he was picked by a fisherman who was going around checking for for people who are alive. So he was picked and taken to cross the border now over to Kisumu. I come from a polygamous background, so he wrote a letter to the first wife, and then she relayed the message to my mom, and that is how now they ran over and came, plus us, all the kids. There were so many of us. We were 5 in our family, and the other family had 5, but then we had a lot of other siblings as well, who now we came together and we joined my dad at Kisumu. And then from Kisumu, I hear they separated us. They moved us from Kisumu to, there's a big refugee camp, I understand, in Thika back then. So when we went there, my mom is a retired nurse. So when they realized that she had some, medical background, they sort of just started giving her, small things, do first aid here, there. And that is how we were released, but to be helped by the NCCK, which I understand was like a body that was helping refugees then. So even our rent, because now we moved and we went to live in Rongai. So even our rent, they were paying rent for us, and they were paying your school fees if you are bright enough. Between position 1 to 3, they pay your fee. So at some point, I moved away from top 3. So they could not pay my fees in a private school. So I was taken to public school. So we went on, and my mom was working for this, I don't know how to call it, but it's called Langata Health Center. It's in Langata. And she went on working there, and they would be paid their salaries very late. So we lived in just poverty most of the time. That body that I've talked about, the refugee council something, stopped paying even for the rent. I remember Uhuru Park. I remember the boats. Those are my happiest moments. But then I remember hunger. I remember hunger. I remember domestic violence. I remember my dad being abusive towards my mom. Funny thing is, my mom would work and my dad would take her pay. I remember my mom walking from Langata to Rongai. There's one time my mom had to work 3 jobs. She'd do night duty where she's supposed to work. Then she'd come and go to another health facility and work until midday. Then go to another one until 7 p.m. 3 jobs. So we rarely saw her. But she'd write notes. She has the most beautiful handwriting. So she'd write notes for us. And just with some money and say, buy skuma, buy charcoal, buy paraffin. And this is transport for tomorrow to go to school. Being the first girl, I'm the second born, but I'm the first girl. I had to grow up really fast to take care of the rest. And I got in a lot of trouble because when my younger siblings did something, it was my mom who came after me because I was older. We were only 5 of us, but unfortunately, when my grandparents, maternal grandparents died, still in the early 90s, my mom went to bury them, and she came with her younger sister, their last born. So it made us 6 because we grew up together. She's younger than me, so she grew up just as one of my siblings. So we were 6 in total. So for that period, my dad was a driver for one of his relatives. I'm not so sure if it's a relative. Yeah, so that is what he was doing, driving. Yeah. And he was a military man. My dad was the disciplinarian. They were pardoned, him and others, I think, who had run away from the country, from Uganda. And he had to go back. So they were promised some money. And so first he wanted to go with us. But it didn't make sense because we've been here all our lives. And so he's the one who left. So my mom went on struggling by herself. I don't think my dad has ever paid even a dime when it comes to my school fees. He doesn't even know my level of education. Sometimes he's going to ask you questions like, are you a graduate? And you're like, oh, he so seriously does not know me. Anyway, so he went back, and so my mom struggled up to when we were joining In Uganda, they say senior one. So we were joining senior one because we traveled to Uganda. And we were taken to a school in the village. It's called Gulu High. So imagine the culture shock. But by the time we're joining school in Uganda, my mom had gotten a better paying job with an NGO. And things were, happening for us. We saw electricity for the first time. That is the year 2000. We saw running water. Then we had a television. Then, and so here we are. We had nice wristwatches, shoes, nice shoes. And my mom had done shopping for us, so we'd gone to school with my sister and my auntie, my mom's sister. So when we joined the school, realized guys there don't wear shoes. I imagine, so we had to remove our shoes. we just couldn't fit in. We tried. There was a lot of issues from our relatives. They would come and interfere in school. So I left for Kampala now to live with my stepmom and my dad. It was also something else because it was a day school. Yeah, so she was a typical stepmom. We made peace just 2 months before her death in 2014. Then she died of cancer. I buried her. Went with my mom, my sister, and my ex-husband. So we buried her, and then we traveled back. So that was high school. So eventually we came back to Kenya to study here. I went to college. In college I was naughty, I was fierce. Anytime when we went to college interns, my sister had to wait. My brother had not made up his mind, so I went before him. So after me, then my brother went, then my sister went. Unfortunately for my aunt, things didn't go well for her. She conceived in Form 3, and many other issues followed afterwards. So after that, I got work. I was lucky. I got my break early then. I was 23 when I got my first job out of Nairobi. And it was a 1-year contract. Did the contract. And after, my dad would come and visit. So I remember when we were going to join A-levels, he came and he took us to the immigration department. And we were kids. We didn't ask many questions. Went to Nyaya House and we got alien cards, my sister and I. We were so excited, to be independent. So that's the document I used in this job. And I worked with them for a full year. Then I went back to school now, to the university, to do my degree. Then I got to work with them again, the same organization. And I worked from that time, 2011 all the way to 2016. That's when I worked with them. So in 2015, I went through something that I'd consider life-changing. Personally, as a therapist, I'd never seen myself as a single mom or a single parent. And it happened. It happened. I could say my marriage ended before it began. But apart from it being painful, I just had a vision board in my head. I had everything figured out. I knew I was going to retire by 35, clear the loans, get my own practice, and get my life going, My dowry was paid on the 14th of March 2014, and it ended in June 14th, 2015. Yes, so the wedding date was set for 5th of September that year. So everything was in place. The gown, the maids, those are things you need to pay for. So I went into shock. His aunt called it off. And he said, first he said he needed some time. Then he moved out. And we'd been together from 2010. So for me, this was another heartbreak. So he left, and I felt like someone had just come and, moved the chips in my life. So this time that I was saying I was feeling depressed, and I had all these suicidal ideations, and all I wanted to do was to just disappear. In fact, I always say my life had no color. It was black and white. And nothing made sense to me. I drank alcohol. I did a lot. And it wasn't even the hard stuff, but I would buy 1.5 liters of wine and finish it that very day. The next day, come from work, buy the same thing. So when I realized now I was going, downward, I went and I checked myself into a hospital. I reached the hospital and the first person I met was a male nurse. And I told him, please admit me. I begged him. And he asked me why. I said, if you don't, whatever I go and do at home is going to be on you. And quickly, I was moved to a room and I was given a tablet. Then I woke up the next day. Finally, they called a social worker. I've worked in a hospital setting so many times. So when we call a social worker for you, you need help. So she came and she tried to make follow-ups. I was assigned to a psychologist. So I had a psychiatrist, a psychologist, and the social worker, and the nurses. And one thing I can say is my stay in the hospital wasn't very nice. Because I remember I would be inside in my where they put the screen. And the nurses would come and, just check in and said, hey, who are you? She's the one who wants to kill herself because of a man. That's what they were saying. Then at that point, also my alien card had expired. So now, for me to leave the hospital, they did an intervention where my mom came, my sister came, the one who follows me. She's very mature. And the psychologist and the social worker sat me down in a small room. And they asked me to go home. And I said no. So I was threatened. I was told, if you don't go home, we will take you to Madare Mental Hospital. And I told myself no. The following day, my friend came and picked me from hospital. But something I would like to mention is, while I was in hospital, my son's father came to see me. No, actually to pass information to me, because now he had found out where I was. So he came and said that his mother wanted to talk to me. And so he said he didn't have a lot of time because he didn't find parking. So he just wants to be there for, 2-3 minutes at most. So I said, okay. So the mom, we called the mom, was given the phone. And she said, go home to your son. Go and take care of your son. We didn't have the best of relationships with her. So it was just that. Go home. go home. Not what is happening. Why are you in that place? Just go home, take care of your son. So I left the hospital, I went home, and I had to make changes. Adjust from where I was living. It was expensive. I could not live there anymore. Because I was so depressed then, so many things happened in my life that it was a blur. Some of these things I'm remembering now and I'm ashamed. So that was that. I moved houses. I tried to move on many times. It was painful. Plus my relatives being so happy that this has happened. My relatives from Uganda, and they would say many things about me, awful things, even about my family. So now I went to renew my card, the alien card. It has expired. So I got there to the migration department. I'm like, I'm here. That's as before. This is what we've been doing. You renew it every 2 years. I get there and I get the shock of my life. I'm told, no. In fact, we found your file. You have a refugee file. So you go to Refugees Affairs Secretariat. It's where? In Shorimoyo. So I got there and I'd been told to go with my child, my son. It was raining. It was a drizzling morning. And guys were queuing outside. I've never been treated like that anywhere, even especially at the immigration department. So it was raining. We stood in the rain. Then I noticed a guy was sort of trying to help people. So I approached him. I introduced myself and I told him why I was there. And he tried to put some speed into what I wanted to be done. So I got a waiting card. And he advised me, it's good with this situation, you try and seek asylum. That's what he told me. So I thought it was wise. So he put my name in some paper. He told me that you'll be called for a few interviews. In the meantime, wait for the card. I think in about 3 or 1 month, it came out. So I got a new card, written refugee card. Now I was more careful. I hid that card. Before I would proudly say I'm Ugandan. But now you tell me I'm from this community, I say yes. I didn't care to clarify anything. If you said I was this, I was that. There was shame being called a refugee. In this day and age, I felt like being called a refugee was something bad. And the worst thing was the dust coats they had on at Shorimoyo. It's written, refugees are real people. I was like, wow. I mean, what are they supposed to be? What are they supposed to be? I've hugged people. I've let them cry on my shoulders when they're reliving those bad moments. And now here I am, a refugee. I mean, so that was it. The shame. And so I used that card. That job where I was working, they phased out. So you were absorbed by a different organization. And again, I approached the HR and I showed them that card. Because in my previous job, when it was changed, I showed them. And they were okay with it. So I showed these guys and they said, well, if this is how you're working with these guys, then it's okay for us. So I worked with that card. So unfortunately, my contract ended with them after 3 years. This is 2019, September. And just to put it out there, that day that contract ended, the person who called me was not even the HR. I don't know what to call her exactly. And she called me and told me, I haven't seen you at work. And I said, yeah, my son was going through just a minor surgery. And this person said, oh, okay, I have a letter for you. She didn't say sorry. She didn't care to know surgery for what. I was like, oh. So she said, I have a letter for you. Then I tell this lady, do you mind reading for me the contents of the letter? She told me no. And exactly, I knew what it meant. So I sent another colleague to pick it for me and drop it at my house. So that contract ended in September. Of course, they're saying it's because of funding. So I was home October, November. I did an interview and I was lucky enough to get the job. So I began that new job in January of 2020 last year. So I did the job. But when I went, I don't know why, for some reason, I did not show this HR, this document, this refugee card. I did not show him. And he did not ask. So I did the job. So COVID came. This is 2020 March now. And we had to work from home. I'd go to work once or twice in a week. So in June, because I knew that card was expiring in July, I called UNHCR, where we've been calling them. We call them for many things. They call you back as well. So I called and I just explained that this card is expiring next month. And I was told, just wait. The offices are closed. You're working from home. We cannot take fingerprints and I don't know do what. So you wait. So when I went back in September, I approached a senior person. He was friendly and he had a voice. So I went to him and I explained my card. This is what I'm using. He didn't even know I was not Kenyan. He was shocked. So he said, okay, don't worry, the HR comes back. Then we're going to sort this out. So before all this, there was this particular colleague who was sexually harassing me at work. This is from the time I joined in January. He'd say some unprintables to me. He'd block my path when I want to pass. He'd take my coffee mug, And I kept telling him off, of course. Just no. So this is now September. And he phoned me on phone one time and he said something to me and I warned him. The following day, I was standing at the window in my office and he came from behind. I'd seen him when I was getting in because I got into the office on that call. It was around 7:30 in the morning. So I'm getting in the office, I'm on that call and I'm seeing him at the balcony. So I entered the office, then he stood at my door, but he was on a call as well. So I did not even think anything would happen. So then I just felt someone touch me inappropriately. Like he just brushed his hands on my body from behind. And I elbowed him. The first thing I did was tell my supervisor what had happened. So the matter was, because now the supervisor asked me, so what do you think we should do? And I said, I think we should escalate it to the HR then. So the next day, I actually went back to the office. I was preparing for a group session. And he came. The first time he came, I sent him away. Second time he came and knelt down in my office and asked for forgiveness. If you were offended. Of course I was offended. Then he said he has a wedding that is going to be in December. Then he belongs to this church where if they had, they would send him away. He said he was a choir master or something. They'll send him away. I'm thinking, wow, how selfish is this person? You're just thinking about yourself. He's just looking out for himself, not for me. What about how I'm feeling? I don't think an apology at that point was going to make sense after all, for me. Because it was everything he's saying before he says sorry. So the matter was escalated and I kept following up. I made enemies. So one time, this senior person that I'd mentioned asked to see me in his office. This is now in a different facility altogether. And he says that he thought I was wise. I mean, that issue, why don't you just drop it? No, you drop the issue, or you go to the HR by yourself and tell them about your card. Tell them about that refugee card. I left that office. I was shaking. I was shaking. This person was sent home for a month. And when he was recalled, he was fired. Now, I thought I was safe. In the meantime, the HR has been calling me about my ID and giving me deadlines. I was told, I'm giving you a month for you to produce a legal working document in this country. I could not see any help. I mean, unless it was a miracle from God himself. So I'd met this person on social media. So I'd explained to him what was happening at work. So he had told me he was going to help me. So we had a first meeting, a second meeting. He brought these guys he told me they work for immigration. I was desperate. The meeting happened on a Saturday at 7 p.m. Red flags, but here I am, so desperate. I don't care. I mean, I want to keep my job. I have no one else who can help me. I don't have a home I can pack up and go back to my mom's home. I can't go to my sister's house. She has her own issues, her kids, her husband, so I can't. So they told me, these people, the immigration people, give us 60,000 and we give you the ID. And I told them, right now, I cannot get 60, but you guys do the job and I'll make sure I give you the money. They said, first you have to give us half. So I went to my circle, I asked for 20,000, I gave them. And this I gave them after my photos were taken, I did my fingerprints, and I left there with a waiting card. That was the thing happened on a Tuesday. Now, on a Friday, I was called and I was told, now, this thing has reached what database, and they need, this person who's going to enter it needs 5K. I just received my salary. So I had some money on me, so I sent, now this person, a different person, on M-Pesa, 5,000 shillings. And he kept telling me, things are working out. Yeah, you see, you, in exactly a month, you'll be having your ID. Because on the 18th, I went to Huduma Center at Kiberadio. This is after another relative had advised me and told me, I think you've been played, but just go to Huduma Center and see. Since I was around that area, I went to Huduma Center, and those guys actually started laughing, but not in a bad way. They told me, we pity you, tunakuhurumia. And again, that black and white thing that I keep saying happened to me. It happened. Like, people are so heartless. Why would you cheat me? I mean, I'm here struggling to make ends meet in a foreign country, and this is what you do to me. So I called this person and I told him off. Then he told me, this is the person who had sent money, but the person who had introduced me to these people was not picking his calls. So later in the evening, he calls and says, let me check. That was the end. Switched off his phone. But my calls were not going through. To date, I think so. So finally, the day came when I got a call from the HR herself, the senior HR, and it was in the evening. We had a meeting, a Zoom meeting between 5 to 6. Then she called me after that meeting, and she told me, yeah, so we are so sorry, we have to let you go. There's an email, you'll probably receive it tomorrow, and all the best in your endeavors. And they told me they'll pay me my last dues in January. This was December now. And I received my last dues in January. So all this is happening. I'm still calling Refugees Affairs Secretariat. But these guys have moved their offices from Shauri Moyo to General Mathenge Road. And what they're saying now is, they're not saying they've closed, they're saying they're still doing construction since they just moved. And I'm thinking, what's this? So someone is going to go hungry. And you guys are comfortably doing this. Why don't you do something for us? Just like an interim something, And I kept calling. So in February, I remember, I went and I met one of those G4S guards. And he was very pleasant. So I told him, this is my number. When this guy is open, just let me know. And August, he actually called me. And I think he called me on 21st, which must have been a Monday. And he told me, I think these guys have opened. I'm not in myself, but I think these guys have opened. They're working. So the following day, on a Tuesday, I went and I was given an appointment to come on 30th. And I went on 30th. Still, it's the same thing. You queue outside. This is now at General Mathenge. I reached there at 7:30 in the morning, and I could not get my way at the front. You could not hear. These guys come and speak at the front. You can't hear what they're saying. So imagine, and then I'm wondering, why are you asking us to queue, yet we can't hear at the back? These are people, some people sleep there, so they can be served early in the morning. So finally, I think around 11, I made my way to the front. I pushed, and I made my way to the front. And I had all these instances of saying, you know what? I do not care. I'm going home. I'm going back home, And I kept looking at my time, and I was saying, my son is about to come from school. I need to be home. I don't have a nanny. And finally, when I reached there at the front, and this guy was outside, was speaking to people, and I'm there squeezing myself, so I'm right on his face. Then I shoved that appointment note that I had been given. I had people calling him officer. I joined in. I said, officer, here is my paper. Here is my paper. I was told to come today on 30th. Today is my appointment. And he grabbed my paper and threw it down. He did not make any eye contact. I was rubbish. So my paper is down on the floor, on the ground. And I have to find it. There are people also pushing and asking questions. People are desperate. People want to know their fate in this country. People want to know why there's this delay. These people, most of them are doing vibaruas. So I picked my paper. And I was sweating because now it was hot. And I just said, I came so early. I was here early, in good time. You guys open here at 8:30 to 9. I was here early. So I'm still in the queue. I had this appointment I'm giving him. And I remember the lady who had given me the appointment had short hair. So when I saw her, I was so happy. So I went to her. So she sent me to a different room where they did my fingerprints. And the lady was very chatty. And I was telling her, okay, I really want to go home early because my son is about to come from school by 3:30. He'll be home, so I need to be home. I didn't leave him with the keys. And trying to reassure me. Then when she was about to enter something in her computer, then she said, but you have another status. It has not been closed. You still have an alien status. Sent me back to that lady. And the lady sent me to the migration department at Nyayo House. Go to room number 14 and ask for a cessation letter. And I asked her, what is the cessation letter supposed to do? The following day, woke up early, went to their house. And my prayer that morning is, God, may I find someone who is a bit humane. Kidogo too. Just a little bit. Let me find someone who loves you. So when I got in, I'm walking, and behind me there's a gentleman, a bit elderly. And he got near me and he was asking this gentleman about some flowers. Then he asked me again. Then he turned and asked me, and you, what are you doing inside here? I said, I've been sent to go to room number 14 to get a cessation letter. Then he tells me, I'm the one in room number 14 and I don't know anything about a cessation letter. Do you have an appointment? And I said, no. He looked a bit agitated at that point. But then he looked at me and said, sit there. So I waited. And his advice to me was, look at your social life. See if you can find a Kenyan to marry you. That's one. And he told me this is actually just advice. It's not on paper anywhere. He put a disclaimer immediately. And two, he told me, because when you get married to a Kenyan, it's easy for you to get this citizenship that you're following so hard. And two, you can close that refugee file, go back to your country, and come back as a foreigner with work. Come find work. Then we'll issue you with an alien card. But then you'll have to pay for the work permit. Work permit doesn't come cheap in Kenya. At least he wasn't mean. I felt like he gave me advice, just. So again, I went back to General thinking, now I have this letter. I still had some alien cards with me, so I surrendered them that day, and I was given the letter. So the following day, I woke up so early. I was the first one among the women to reach Refugees Affairs Secretariat. In short, they call it RAS. So when I got in, and I got bad news. I was told to register my son as a refugee. And I can't be issued with an ID because I'm an asylum seeker. And if not, I can go back to my country is stable. Wow. I was so dejected that day. I just left. But now, I was like, at least I had some hope. Before that closed this office, I was saying that closed the office, I was hopeful. They will open, they will renew, I will find work. I don't think I would allow for my son to have that status, because I know what has taken me. And so when I was being told to register my son as a refugee, I was seeing him in the rain. I was seeing him being pushed. I was seeing him being, like what that man did to me, throwing my paper down. I saw all that, like a flash. And at the back of my mind, I was like, my son is Kenyan. He was born in Kenya. He has a Kenyan birth certificate. He has a Kenyan father. So saying that he's a refugee, what does it mean? But I've lived my entire life in Kenya. I came here when I was a 3-year-old. I'm 37. That means I've been here for 34 good years. How do I go back? And start from where? My cousins, my friends in Uganda are asking me for connections to come and work in Kenya because they're saying there are no jobs. They want to come here. They want to get money from Kenya. So I'm going back and I'm thinking, I already went back and I didn't like it. I didn't fit. When I'm in Uganda, I'm told I'm Kenyan. How I speak, how I carry myself. In fact, I remember when I was getting my passport the first time in 2009, which now I've learned that I should not have, having a refugee status, I shouldn't have gotten a passport because you're a refugee. A refugee should not have a passport. That's what they tell me. So when I was getting this, my passport in 2009, the first time, I was told that I'm not Ugandan, so I gave my birth certificate, which of course showed that I was Ugandan. Then the interview was carried out in mother tongue, actually. And yeah, I did my best. So for me, going back, it really didn't make sense. What about the times? What about the things I've done for this country, or for the people of this country? The services I've given. What about the times I've helped a Kenyan? I mean, God, I was like, God, cut me some slack. So for me, it didn't make sense. I can't, living here means I will go through all this humiliation. Going back means I don't fit in. Right? And if I'm going to find work in Uganda, they have to follow through with the Kenyan schools. This is going to take time. I'll be probably 45. And I'll have to be self-employed because no one is going to employ a 45-year-old at that point, I'm thinking. So anyway, I left that place and I was feeling terrible about myself. A neighbor gave me some piece of advice. Actually, she called a friend from the immigration who told me, go back, renew your ID, renew your passport actually. To renew the passport. Then you come back, we give you a document called gratis. Because you're East African, it won't cost you much. You'll be able to work in Kenya. Again, my hopes were raised. So now it's putting money together. I went to my son's father, who has been very supportive when it comes to, supporting me as the mother of his child. So he promised me some money. My church promised me some money. A few friends promised me some money. And finally, I put the money together. Off I went. I went to the embassy. I asked for advice from the embassy. First, I gave them the passport to renew for me. They told me, you have to pay this much. You have to send the money to someone in Uganda that you know and trust who can pay somewhere the money for you. So I thought, this being a very delicate document, I should travel. And that is how I made travel arrangements. I was given a pass and off I went. So I got to the border, the Busia border. And all hell broke loose that day. No, the times I've traveled to Uganda, I'm always very anxious towards the border, because my first treatment was bad at the border. This was when, now as someone who knew what was happening now, this is when I was going to Form 1. So now, again, and all the times I've gone to the border, the Kenyan side has been very tough, harsh, mostly. So we got to the border and I don't know, maybe I was just being honest, because I gave this person the pass and then he looks at it, then he says, where's your passport? I didn't know it was a trick question. So here I am, I pulled the expired passport and gave this person. And he opened it, saw it, told me, come behind here. Now I enter the office now. And he said I need to give him 10,000 shillings. And I was like, I don't have money. I don't have money. And that is the fine for staying in the country illegally with an expired passport. He told me, now you'll go to court in the morning. I was afraid. I was afraid of going to jail. I was afraid of going to court. And this man just says, go to the bus and bring bring your luggage here. So I walked to the bus. And the conductor of that bus saw me pulling out my bag and he said, you know what, go back. All these guys need is money. Just talk to him. At first I was like, no. Let them do whatever they want to me. But as I was walking back, it's dark there at the border. So as I'm walking back, I'm thinking about my son. I'm thinking he's going to lose his mom. And this cycle is going to repeat itself. Like my mom is alive. But I feel like I have been nobody's daughter. You know, Uganda, I'm told I'm Kenyan. In Kenya, I'm being called a refugee. Go back to your country stable. So now this is me, and I'm thinking, what about my son? What will happen to him if I'm jailed? So I fight on. I went in that office, and I started talking to him, and I'm telling him, just listen to me. Please listen to me. I'm begging him. And the rudeness is throwing away my passport on the other side. Not towards me, of course, because I might take it. The other side, and he's saying, why do you want to talk to me? You've been living here, eating our money, you know, working in our NGOs, and that's how he's talking to me. So I asked him to send these people out who were in the office because I didn't talk to him. And I begged him. I said, I don't have 10,000 shillings. He asked me for 5. I'm like, do you know, there was an harambe for me to be here today, for me to travel here. My church, my friends, they enabled me for this to happen. So the man looks at me and says, no. I tell him, I don't have 5, I don't have 10. And I just told him now. This is amidst tears, and I'm trying to beg him, of course, and I tell him, I have 3,000 shillings. That is all I have. He says to give him the 3,000 shillings. I told him no. Let me tell you, this one is for eating on the way, but I've not eaten it. So I've not eaten it because I need to move around in Kampala. So how about I give you? Now we're bargaining. It's my money. Let me give you 2,000 shillings. At least I remain with 1,000 shillings. And he says no. And I'm thinking, you are a selfish man. You are. Why are you doing this to a defenseless person? I mean, I'm just traveling to get my documents right so that I can get a job and fend for my son and put food on the table. That's all I want. And he says, okay, go and withdraw the money. He wants it in cash form. Again. So that's what I did. I brought the 2,000 shillings. And he made me give it to another person, not him. He didn't receive it. I gave it to another person. I got to Uganda. I went to a friend's house. And this friend has an uncle who works at the immigration, calls the uncle, introduces my issue. And the uncle says, no worries, then tell her to come with the ID. And then she asked me, do you have an ID? I said, no. And again, it's the same issue again, ID. So he asked when I got the ID, the passport. She said, relayed the message and said 2009. I said, oh yeah, 2009, they were not serious on that issue. So that's why she doesn't have. So she needs to apply for one and get, I think it's a NIN number. I think it should be a national identity number or something. Identification number. I need to get that number first for me to renew my passport. The cycle again. So I managed to get that with the waiting for the ID, but the ID comes out in 2 months. So I came back. So to get the Ugandan passport, I would need roughly 200, okay, to get the express, you get it back in 2 to 3 days. it will need 250,000 Uganda money. That's when you change it to Kenya money, 7,000, I think roughly 7,600, roughly. So I just came back and I said, I will follow that avenue now and see. And I was hoping I would do it within these 30 days. Unfortunately, it has not happened yet. The first week after I came, I've been depressive, just lying down and doing nothing. I think I've tried my hands on everything. I've tried to remain hopeful. I've tried to remain positive. But I am so depressed. All I want to do is just die. And you know what stops me from dying? It's my son. Because I have attended my own funeral more than once. And I've seen my son cry and ask, why, Mama, why? I mean, I brought him into this world. I have to take care of him. I will not do this to him. I will not let my son go through what I have gone through. This pain, no, maybe a different kind of pain, but this being a refugee, this, in fact, when I'm told to go back home, Uganda, if I have, personally, for me, I feel like I don't fit. What about him? Will he fit there? They say, children adjust. No, I know my son. I know me. If I did not adjust, what about him? I feel like I have no home. I am nobody's daughter. I'm nobody's child. I'm not a Ugandan. I'm not a Kenyan. Where am I? The thing is, I feel like Kenya has been my home for 34 years. I have friends here. I've made friends here. My loved ones, some of them are here. I love this country. In fact, if I'm asked to go back to Uganda, stay in Kenya, I'll stay in Kenya. Because I'm used to this life. Why can't this government cut me some slack? I mean, give me a chance. I paid my taxes. I have all those documents, NSSF, NHIF. When they're taking from me, are they taking from me as a Ugandan? No. They're not. But why is it now? In my head, I feel like something as simple as a citizenship. I mean, there's proof. I've been given promises. I've been in vulnerable situations, even with men who promise things. You, come, you'll get this document. Chop, chop. Nothing. Nothing. Personally, how I feel right now is I need this government to do something for me. I mean, just return the favor. Return the favor. When people are saying, you've been living in this country for free, those men at the border, no, I pay rent. It's not some government housing project, no. I pay rent. Right now, I have to rely on one well-wisher who pays my rent diligently because of my son. And that's his father. But this is my question. Until when? I'm educated, I mean. I have 12 years of being a therapist. 12 years. And not just anything, I'm a good therapist. 12 years working in proper NGOs. What if this person falls and dies today? God forbid, tomorrow. What if he gets this life-threatening condition and he can't work? Then what? Was I born to just receive handouts? No. I mean, 1987, we come into this country and we are treated badly. To this date, I'm a 37-year-old woman. Why can't they do something? I mean, that's a long time. Unfortunately, I remember the immigration when this guy was giving me advice. He said, well, that's Kenya for you. We are a nation that these people just make decisions. And that is the decision they've made. They cannot give citizenship to a refugee. So that's where I'm at. And I just need some assistance. A citizenship would look really nice. I would vote for the first time. I have never voted. I would vote. I hear people say they don't want to vote, don't want to vote. I can't vote. Vote for what? No, I want to vote. I want to vote these people out who are making those decisions. Those people who do not go to refugees affairs secretariat and see how we queue outside in the rain or in the cold or in the sun with nowhere to pee. I want them to go. It's wrong. We are human beings. What I know is when you have a visa that is about to expire, you can get it renewed. But I don't know about this pass that I have, this movement pass. I don't know how you can extend it. That I've never had. And I'm sure if it's this extension, there's a fee. Everything, there's a fee attached to it. And right now, in my current state where I'm jobless, not because I don't have the education, but it's because I don't have the legal working documents. And it's even from my last job, when they let me go, it was on those grounds. That's what they said. That's what they wrote on the letterhead. So what I want to happen is to renew that passport. Because then there's a document called gratis. And with that gratis, I can use it to get employment. I can be employed in Kenya. That would be my wish. To work again. To wake up in the morning. And see my son leave. Then I enter in my car and go to work. I would want that. Yes, I want change. I want to be independent, to take care of my child. And I want his dad to take a break. Because he's been there. He's been there for his child. I summoned God one day and I said, come here. Because I feel you're sitting on that throne. You're not here with me. You just sat there. Hauko hapa. Come and visit me. See this? See this? That's not me. I'm the one who's giving to my friends. I'm the one who's giving to my family. Now I'm helpless.